Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Dinosaur massacre. Using fossil evidence, paleontologists have managed to put together the events of a bizarre dinosaur massacre. It all began with a herd of migrating centrosaurs. Centrosaurs were a type of herbivorous dino from the late Cretaceous period that lived in what is today Canada, back around 76.5 million years ago. Seasonal monsoons caused a bunch of flooding along the coast, so it drove the centrosaurs a little too far inland. What they didn't realize was that they were migrating straight into a horde of hungry Daspletosaurus. The Daspletosaurus was a type of tyrannosaurid, a frightful lizard monster with huge teeth that wasn't afraid of anything. They were closely related to the Tyrannosaurus rex, equipped with dozens of sharp teeth and small arms. But don't let those small arms fool you. The massacre began almost immediately. The carnivorous dinosaurs had been lying in wait, and they quickly picked off the defenseless horned dinosaurs like a pack of hyenas picking off a herd of baby sheep. Then things got worse. The centrosaurs became trapped by a flooded river, unable to get across to the safety on the other side. Nonetheless, they tried, and dozens upon dozens drowned as they tried to cross, or were picked off by even deadlier water predators that moved in for the feast. In the end, almost no one survived. How did paleontologists reconstruct this horrifying nightmare? It was all based on dinosaur fossils found at the site of the massacre, with the paleontologists having to put together the clues of what happened, finally painting this devastating picture of a horrific nature documentary 75 million years ago. BBC Earth has recreated this entire scene, and it's quite scary to watch. The asteroid that made the Amazon. There has been a recent discovery regarding the asteroid impact that killed off the dinosaurs. According to researchers, the asteroid impact also created the Amazon jungle. Researchers investigated fossilized pollen and leaves picked up in Colombia to show how the impact transformed South America into a tropical landscape. 66 million years ago, when the asteroid hit the Earth, it dramatically changed the type of vegetation on the South American continent. No wonder either, because the asteroid was 7.4 miles across. Dr. Monica Carvalho with the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institution said that she and her team examined at least 50,000 fossilized pollen records, including over 6,000 leaf fossils from both before and after the devastating impact. Here's what they discovered. Before the impact, the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico was mostly conifer plants and ferns. But after, the plant diversity declined by at least 45%, and most of the plants that bore seeds were extinct. It's true that the forest did recover over the following 6 million years, though this time, flowering plants became dominant. Here's something else that's really interesting. During the Cretaceous period, when dinosaurs still ruled the Earth, the forests were widely spaced. What this means is that the trees were spaced really far apart, and there was a lot of sunlight on the ground. Unlike the Amazon today, with the trees pushed against each other and the canopy overlapping, less light reached the ground as trees grew closer together, creating the Amazon rainforest as we know it today, filled with blossoming flowers and diverse plants. Big in Japan. Researchers in Japan have just discovered what could very well be the largest ornithopod dinosaur that ever roamed the country. The discovery comes in the form of a single fossil found hidden beneath the sand at a local beach in Nagasaki. The fossil is of a shoulder blade, with the horrifying beast that it belonged to measuring over 24 feet long. This dinosaur lived in the late Cretaceous period, roughly 81 million years ago. The fossil was so big that they needed to use heavy machinery to get the thing out of the sand. Researcher Kazunori Miyata referred to the discovery as an invaluable piece of material and hopes it will help scientists to better understand the dinosaurs that used to live in Nagasaki. Even more impressive is that the fossil appears to be in almost perfect condition. The dinosaur is called Hadrosauroideae, and it was a kind of herbivore. Other fossils have been found before of this dino, with the oldest in the area dating to over 120 million years ago. However, this is by far the largest specimen. It was one of the biggest plant eaters of its time in Japan, closely related to duck-billed dinosaurs. It wasn't only living in Japan either, as other specimens have been found in other parts of Asia, Europe, and Africa. The biggest dinosaur in Australia. Speaking of huge dinosaurs, a new species of dinosaur found in Australia has just been confirmed as the largest ever in the whole country and one of the biggest on the planet. The fossilized dinosaur has been nicknamed Cooper because it was found in Cooper Creek, southwest Queensland. While the dinosaur was actually discovered quite a while ago in 2007, researchers just didn't know what to make of it when they first found it. It was only recently that paleontologists were able to scientifically describe it as the largest Australian dinosaur, thanks to help from researchers at the Eromanga Natural History Museum. Cooper's official name is Australotitan cooperensis, and these dinosaurs roamed the Earth over 90 million years ago. The bones that were found were large and chunky, so paleontologists knew that they belonged to a large species. The team used 3D technology to scan each bone so they could compare them to other species. The Australotitan was a type of titanosaur, a species of plant eater that belonged to the larger family of long-necked sauropods. Cooper was found to be related to 3 other sauropods, and it looks like these dinosaurs were huge. Sauropods are the largest species of dinosaur currently known to scientists. But just how big did this monster get? The answer might make you dizzy. According to the paleontologists working closely with the fossil, the dinosaur reached a shocking height of 21 feet at the hip, with a total standing length of 82 to 98 feet. When standing, the dinosaur would have been as tall as a 2-story building. It had a long neck and long tail, huge powerful legs, and a fat, hairless body. Australia has been on the map recently for these incredible dinosaur finds. Or, as paleontologist Scott Hucknall says, the dinosaurs find you. Nest sitting. Researchers have made a new shocking discovery in China when they found the first ever dinosaur preserved while sitting on its nest of eggs. This is a one-of-a-kind discovery that scientists all over the world are celebrating. The preserved dinosaur was found sitting on a small batch of eggs, with the embryos still inside. It was an oviraptorosaur, a kind of feathered bird-like creature that lived during the Cretaceous period 70 million years ago. The fossil was found hidden among rocks in Guangzhou City, according to the news release from the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. This is an exciting discovery because dinosaurs preserved in their nests are wildly rare, even rarer than fossilized embryos. While avian dinosaurs have been found preserved on their eggs, this is the first time the discovery has been made with an actual dinosaur. Picture a velociraptor like the one from Jurassic Park, except with brightly colored feathers, sitting on a pile of 24 eggs. At least 7 of those 24 eggs have the preserved bones of the partial embryos inside of them. 3 of the embryos were actually visible from the outside, meaning scientists could see the forearms, hind limbs, and even parts of tails inside the eggs. The monkeydactyl. Researchers have recently unveiled a creature with the oldest pair of thumbs ever found. It's been dubbed the monkeydactyl because it's kind of like a mix between a monkey and a pterodactyl. In truth, this strange creature was a type of pterosaur, only about 3 feet wide. It was fairly small, though extremely unique because it was the first animal known to science that could give a thumbs up. What did the monkeydactyl do? It was a flying reptile that could glide around the canopy of the ancient forest looking through the trees for yummy bugs. It was so agile and so good with its opposable thumbs that it could literally snatch flying cicadas out of the air with its hands while flying. Imagine a giant eagle, but instead of talons, it has monkey paws. Another reason this discovery was so strange is that according to doctoral researcher Fayon Waisum Ma, pterosaurs were not known for having thumbs. This is a unique animal, with no other like it during the age of the dinosaurs, and nothing like it ever since. The fossil of the monkeydactyl was found in northeastern China, petrified inside a piece of rock from the Jurassic period. It likely lived sometime between 200 and 145 million years ago, though scientists are still baffled over how it evolved to have thumbs, and why the animals that followed never grew them. New crested dino. A new species of crested dinosaur was recently identified in Mexico. The identification was done by a team of paleontologists who found the fossil of the new creature roughly a decade ago. It took them 10 years to identify the crested dino, and they now know it was an amazing beast that lived 72 million years ago. It's been named Tlatolophus gallorum. The discovery was made in the Mexican state of Coahuila, and it all started with the tail. Researchers continued digging, quickly shocked to find additional bones, such as the femur and scapula, and even 80% of its skull. It was actually the skull that helped them to identify it as a crested dinosaur, since it had the notorious crest growing out of its head. The crest is actually something of an enigma to scientists, who have been trying to understand its function for decades. Some paleontologists believe the crest was designed to increase the animal's ability to smell. The crest may have been used to increase the surface area of the sensory tissue, thereby allowing the animal to smell much better than others. However, it's still a working theory, and scientists are not 100% sure. The horned monster. A new horned beast, 82 million years old, was just found in New Mexico, and paleontologists are saying it could be the earliest dinosaur of its type. The newly discovered monster was a member of the Ceratopsidae family. The most famous member of this family is definitely the Triceratops, the deadly horned rival to the T-Rex. The creature once roamed New Mexico about 20 million years before the Triceratops ever showed up. It was basically the big brother to the Triceratops, significantly older and a lot smaller. Whereas the Triceratops could grow to an astounding 30 feet in length, this newest horned demon, named the Menephiceratops, could only grow to around 15 feet. In the small window of only 20 million years, the creature evolved to be twice its size. Pretty impressive feat of evolution. The dinosaur also sticks out because of its unique frills, the bony spines that look like collars growing out the back of the dinosaur's head. They were completely plain with nothing but bumps on them, which is quite different to the ornamental horns on later versions. Paleontologists believe the Ceratopsidae family continued to grow and evolve for between 145 and 66 million years ago, but stopped only because of that pesky asteroid that crashed into the Earth. The largest creature ever. In Argentina, paleontologists have unearthed a gigantic dinosaur that may just be one of the largest living things to ever reside on our planet. It's called a titanosaur, and it's nothing short of daunting. The creature was discovered in Patagonia, its fossil buried in thick sediment deposits at the Candeleros Formation, one of the richest fossil deposits anywhere in South America. It lived 98 million years ago and was part of the family of sauropod dinosaurs, the biggest dinosaur family that I told you about earlier. 24 vertebrae were found, including parts of the tail, the pelvis, and its pectoral girdle. And yes, it's even bigger than the other sauropod that was recently found in Australia. Whereas the other sauropod was only about 98 feet, this one is estimated at reaching up to 122 feet. That makes it the same size as another giant dinosaur found in Patagonia named Patagotitan, a monster that lived 100 million years before today. Believe it or not, these giants may have lived in just about every region on Earth. At least titanosaurs did. Their fossils have been found on every continent except Antarctica, with many of them exceeding 40 tons in weight. Some, like the Argentinosaurus, could weigh up to 110 tons. That's over 12 African elephants stacked on top of each other. The fear dinosaur. A new dinosaur has been given a name that tells you everything you need to know about it. It's been called the one who causes fear, and it was terrifying. The dinosaur was found in Argentina, with researchers uncovering the animal's extremely well-preserved skull. It was probably one of the top predators in Patagonia during the late Cretaceous. It was huge, had a powerful bite, and had claws that could rip even the toughest dinosaurs to shreds. But where did it get its name? Its scientific name is Lucalcan, which is Mapuche for the one who causes fear. The lead paleontologist on the study was Federico Giantini, and he said that Lucalcan was a kind of abelosaurid, remarkable animals that thrived in the twilight years of the dinosaurs. These beasts were similar to the tyrannosaurs that ruled in the northern hemisphere in places like Canada and the United States. But in the south, it was the abelisaurids that were on the top of the meat pile, and specifically, the one who causes fear. This fear-inspiring predator was quite a bit smaller than its northern counterpart. It only averaged between 15 and 30 feet long. But other than being smaller, it looked just like your ordinary T-Rex. It had short and stubby arms, a very small skull with a crest on the top and demon horns, and sharp teeth for eating any dinosaur or other creature silly enough to get in its way. Shipwreck treasures. A team of researchers surveying the seabed off the coast of Greece discovered 4 mysterious shipwrecks that could hold clues to trade in the ancient Mediterranean. The discovery happened off the coast of the Greek island of Kassos, with help from the Institute of Historical Research of the National Hellenic Research Foundation. Inside the shipwrecks, archaeologists excavated a treasure trove of ancient pottery. The most significant discovery was from the oldest vessel dating back to the 2nd or 3rd century, which was a large collection of pottery from ancient Rome. The pottery vessels are called amphorae, and they used to be filled with oil produced in Spain and Africa and then transported across the Mediterranean to various empires. Amphorae get their name from the Greek term amphiphorius, which means carried on both sides. That explains the 2 handles. These amphorae may not be gold or jewels, but they date back 2,500 years, and they hold many clues to life in ancient times. The truly amazing part of the discovery is that according to the expedition leader, this was the first time archaeologists found amphorae from both Spain and North Africa in this same shipwreck. The oil had probably been on its way to the old city of Rhodes when the ship sank. But what about the other 3 ships that were found? They span a period of about 1,000 years, with the most recent being from modern times. The expedition was part of a 3-year research project to map the seabed near Kassos. The team has done over 100 dives, and the next time, they hope to have some state-of-the-art machinery that will help uncover even more ancient treasures. Gumusler Monastery. The Gumusler Monastery comes from the Byzantine era. It's a monastery built straight into the side of a cave. But it's actually more than just an ordinary monastery. It's one of the best preserved in all of Turkey, a country known for having dozens of ancient rock monasteries and some of the oldest temples on the planet. According to scholars, the most important part of the Gumusler Monastery is its church, located just slightly to the north. At least 3 separate masters worked on the paintings that adorn the interior. But here's where things get really interesting. The monastery was only rediscovered recently in the year 1962. It also has on one of its walls something not seen anywhere else in the whole region: paintings of hunters hunting. The pictures show several different animals being hunted down, which is strange considering the rest of the paintings mostly depict religious scenes, with figures like John the Baptist and Saint Stephen. This beautiful cave monastery dates back to before the 7th century, though scholars don't know exactly when. The paintings have been dated to between the 7th and 13th centuries AD, which is incredible when you think about it, since the monastery was painted continuously over a course of at least 500 years. World's oldest tea. Do you like to drink tea? I love it, and it's been around for a very long time. The oldest tea in the entire world was just found by archaeologists inside the tomb of an emperor from the Han Dynasty in China. The tea dates back an astounding 2,150 years. The discovery came when archaeologists were doing excavations inside the Han Yang Ling Mausoleum, a massive tomb built for the Emperor Zhengdi, found near the modern Chinese city of Qian. It's an amazing discovery because it not only confirms that Chinese royals drank tea thousands of years before people in the West, but also because it shows historians some interesting facts about the old Silk Road. The mausoleum was first excavated back in 1990, with researchers uncovering incredible chariots with horses, weapons, pottery figures, and much more. The oddest part of the discovery came in the form of withered, decomposed plants. Researchers couldn't tell what was going on back in the 90s, but with new technology and specialized equipment, they have finally identified the mysterious plant matter as ancient tea. Here's a fact. According to the Smithsonian, the first written mention of tea dates back to the year 59 BC, which lines up roughly with this newest discovery. However, the exact origins of tea are still unknown. Tea was wildly popular with the people living in northern China beginning in the 7th century AD, but tea drinking may have already been going on for a few thousand years before that. Nude horsemen. Volunteer archaeologists excavating an ancient Roman fortress in the north of England stumbled upon an insanely rare carving of a nude warrior hanging out with his horse. It's a totally bizarre sculpture and one of incredible value. It was dug up at Vindolanda by a pair of volunteers named Richie Miller and David Goldwater. They had already been working at the heritage site for 15 years and still couldn't believe their luck when they found the statue hiding just a few inches beneath the topsoil. The Roman fort of Vindolanda is one of the most important archaeological sites in the world and is often revealing exciting and unique artifacts. But what exactly does the carving represent? It's the first of its kind to be found at the Roman fortress, and to be honest, the experts are a bit stumped. The carving is roughly 12 inches long, which was quite large for the time. Marta Alberti, a resident archaeologist at Vindolanda, says the nudity of the figure suggests it could be a god instead of a man. She goes on to say that because the naked man, or god, is holding a spear in his left arm, he could be a representation of the god of war Mars. But here's where things get tangled up. The god also appears to have wings, and this was the attribute of a different god, Mercury, the god of travel. Mercury was often depicted with horses, since he was the protector of travelers. Whether Mercury or Mars, it's still a fascinating discovery. Because of where it was found at the fort, inside the cavalry barracks, archaeologists say the soldiers stationed here could have even made up their own god, giving him a cornucopia of different features. Ancient necropolis. In Croatia, local archaeologists have discovered a necropolis packed full of ancient remains. 32 corpses to be exact, with some of their remains buried inside of ceramic jars. These dead folks date back to around the beginning of the 5th century AD, or just over 1,500 years ago. They were found on the grounds of the Radosevic Palace, built on the island of Hvar in the 17th century. But forget the old castle because the ancient remains are exceptional. The experts say the burials were done so well that even all these years later, the corpses are in excellent condition. The archaeologists even found grave goods like utensils, coins, and ceramics. If you're wondering why the people were buried in jars, so are the archaeologists. It's weird because usually jar burials were reserved for infants or very young children in this area. This makes sense because their small bodies were easily put into jars. It was a huge task to get an adult's body in a jar, and the experts are a little confused on why the ancient people who lived here went through all that effort. It looks like they made the jugs bigger to be able to make them fit. The jars here are huge, over 6 feet long, with enough room inside to hold a fully grown person, along with enough treasure to be rich in the afterlife. Mathematical secrets. Archaeologists found a clay tablet from Babylonia that dates back to 1,000 years before the Pythagoras theorem was invented. The clay tablet is kind of amazing because whoever made it had already figured out this famous theorem and had made this clay tablet into a trigonometry table even more accurate than those used by scientists today. What? Who was this Babylonian genius? Nobody has any idea, but he beat Pythagoras by a millennium. This unnamed genius figured out that the square of the longest side of a right-angled triangle is always going to be equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides. Then he went on to make a clay tablet and reed pen to mark out the mathematical equations with shocking accuracy. This happened about 3,700 years ago, according to Columbia University, where the artifact is being held. The tablet is known in the scientific community as Plimpton 322. It was found prior to the 1930s, excavated from Iraq by a guy named Edgar Banks. Edgar is believed to be the original inspiration for Indiana Jones. He'd even gone on the hunt for Noah's Ark, though of course he never found it. Or did he? The bigger mystery here is why did the Babylonians figure out complex math equations at least 1,000 years before anyone else? The experts are convinced that Babylon was much more advanced than previously thought, perhaps with some of the most brilliant mathematical minds in history. It's just hard to know for sure because so much of their history and written records have been lost. I want to say a big thank you to Edward Parkhurst and Sarah Elmore. Thanks so much for supporting this channel and spending time with us. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe for more videos on archaeology and amazing discoveries. Weighing systems. Researchers have recently made some pretty fascinating discoveries in the world of currency. There has long been a debate over whether the Bronze Age saw any kind of complex trading market that used a form of money. Now, researchers believe that even without standardized currency or a governing institution, traders and merchants across Europe used a weighing system to trade currency for goods. Researchers looked at weighing systems that were used from Western Europe all the way to the Indus Valley, from between 3000 to 1000 BC. What they found was that the system for weighing currency became standard across the ancient world, meaning someone could travel from Mesopotamia to Europe and their goods would be worth the same amount. It was basically the first global trading network. Professor Lorenz Ramsdorf from the University of Göttingen says that free trade and entrepreneurship was active starting in the Bronze Age and may have been the start of our global trade network today. And they don't call it the Bronze Age for nothing. If you're wondering what was used as currency, it was usually bronze scrap. This included everything from broken swords and axes to fragments of jewelry. These scraps were weighed using the standard system and traded for other goods like oil and furs. Plus, research has shown that across the ancient world, the weighing system would almost immediately correct itself and adjust to the fluctuations in prices. Pointy shoes. According to a new study, the British people have been suffering for fashion ever since the days of medieval Europe. Researchers in Cambridge investigated the bodies of dead people buried in the center of town and noted that the wealthier citizens and those belonging to the clergy had suffered bunions much more frequently than those of poorer status. What is a bunion? It's a malformation of the big toe caused by wearing shoes that end in a point, kind of like what happens to ballerinas who force their feet into tiny ballerina shoes. A bunion is a minor deformity in the large toe in which it gets angled outward. It's not that common today, but used to be a pretty nasty affliction. The study has shown that the wealthy citizens of Cambridge were able to afford fancy shoes with tipped points, and this resulted in a plague of bunions throughout medieval England. Even weirder is that the corpses showed that those who suffered from bunions because of wearing fancy footwear were much more likely to have suffered one or more broken bones from a fall. In other words, the wealthy urbanites became obsessed with pointy shoes, they got deformed feet because of them, and a lot of people couldn't even walk in the shoes, and so they often fell and broke their bones. Pottery workshop. The remains of a huge pottery workshop believed to have been built in the Greco-Roman era was just discovered in Egypt, in the Egyptian governorate of Beheida north of Cairo. It dates back to around the 3rd century BC, and so far archaeologists have unearthed the forming, drying, and furnace areas for the pottery. They also discovered pots and pans made from clay mixed with unknown additives. These dishes, which is basically what they were, are still preserved in perfect condition, in the exact same shape they were 2,500 years ago. In the forming area where the pottery was molded into shape, archaeologists found bits of a potter's wheel, metal tools, and partial clay pots. It was quite the complicated operation, with kilns, ventilation, and hardened mud brick walls. The workshop had likely been used to help furnish nearby settlements with pots and other everyday pottery. Plus, the archaeologists found mud brick tombs in the area, with some of the tombs filled with dead humans buried in squatting positions. Perhaps it was the artisans that were buried here. These tombs contained pottery probably crafted in the workshop, with funerary vessels made of alabaster and copper. Ancient sarcophagus. In the old city of Bath, populated by the Romans when they occupied England 2,000 years ago, archaeologists have uncovered a limestone coffin containing the bodies of 2 individuals. They say the bodies may have been used as offerings to the Roman gods. Inside the limestone coffin, archaeologists found the remains of someone in a prone position, along with the partial remains of another person laid at their feet. The bizarre positions of the dead have led archaeologists to speculate that they may have been part of a pagan burial ritual. Nearby, they found small glass beads of blue and red, which could have been left as offerings. It was common in Roman days to give these kinds of donations to the gods. Sylvia Warman, the science advisor for Historic England, said the discovery is amazing and that this is the first sarcophagus of its kind to be excavated in modern days. It was actually found beneath the Sydney Gardens, a place once frequented by the famous Jane Austen. It was discovered while workers were landscaping. And to make things even more shocking, the team also uncovered someone's cremated remains, a rarity in the ancient Roman world since they almost always buried their dead. Not much else is known about who the people buried and cremated were, though the experts are certain they had something to do with an old and unknown pagan ritual. Antarctic Pyramid. It looks like there could be a pyramid hiding in plain sight in Antarctica. There has been a conspiracy surrounding the loss of an ancient civilization from the Antarctic continent circling for a long time. With the discovery of what appears to be a huge pyramid covered in ice, that conspiracy theory has really taken off. But could it be true? Could an ancient civilization have carved a huge pyramid structure out of rock, only to have the frigid southern snow cover it from view? And if not, who made the pyramid? Was it aliens? Ancient alien theorists are certain that there are secret pyramids hidden all over the globe. Why not Antarctica? The pyramid has 4 steep sides that look very much like the Great Pyramid of Giza. The TV show Ancient Aliens argues that these pyramids were left behind by an alien race, and that this pyramid was the master pyramid that all the other pyramids on Earth were meant to look like. Also, one of the theories is that pyramids somehow were used to generate energy, and this one might have been some sort of wireless energy maker. Geologists and most other scientists are not convinced. Yes, the structure is real. There is definitely a mountain in Antarctica that looks exactly like a pyramid. Unfortunately, it's probably just an ordinary mountain. Eric Rignot, a professor at the University of California, recently told Live Science that there is no pyramid in Antarctica. He says the structure everyone is so excited about really is just a mountain that looks like a pyramid, though he did admit that it's pretty rare to see this kind of mountain since it has all 4 sides even and smooth, making it look more like a pyramid than some real pyramids. The Pyramid Mountain is actually just one peak on the Ellsworth Mountains, first discovered by an American aviator named Lincoln Ellsworth back in November of 1935. That means the Pyramid Mountain was first witnessed over 80 years ago, but perhaps now more than ever, people are still arguing over what it actually is. What do you think? Pyramid or just a mountain? Let me know in the comments below. The end of the world. According to some people, Antarctica is where the world ends. Flat Earth conspiracy theorists have apparently gotten together and decided that they will embark on their very own expedition to Antarctica to prove once and for all, despite all the evidence against it, that the world is indeed flat and that it ends just after Antarctica. However, the people who have organized this bizarre expedition said they don't have any plans to do it soon. They have instead chartered a cruise ship to take them into much warmer waters, where flat Earth believers can meet, network, and talk about how flat the Earth is. The trip to Antarctica is supposed to come later, though skeptics say the flat Earth enthusiasts are scared of being proven wrong and will probably never actually get on the boat when the time comes. Why not just do it now? Cruise to Antarctica to the end of the world would be fun anyway, right? Sort of like Journey to the Center of the Earth or Around the World in 80 days. But what makes these people believe Antarctica is the end of the Earth? According to Robbie Davidson, the guy in charge of organizing the cruise, if you take a globe and squish it, Antarctica will go all the way around the planet. This is the basis of their beliefs. But hold on to your socks because it gets even stranger. These people also believe that Antarctica is basically an icy shore, but not one that you can peek over. They don't believe anything is able to fall off the edge of the Earth because they actually believe the Earth is inside of a snow globe, along with the sun and the moon and the stars. Fun! Landed UFO. There have been claims made recently that a UFO has crashed in Antarctica, and apparently there are images to prove it. Footage was posted online showing what appears to be a trail through the snow left by some kind of elongated object, looking like a long metal tube. The discovery was made using satellite images taken from Google Earth, with thousands of people immediately convinced that aliens landed in Antarctica. You know what scientists are going to say. Geology expert Richard Waller from Keele University says the trail was not left by a UFO, but rather a rock that fell down the side of a mountain during an avalanche. But here we have 2 conflicting stories. The conspiracy theorists claim that the UFO hit the top of the mountain, causing it to collapse, before hitting the ground and skidding to a halt. On the other side, the professional scientist says it was a perfectly natural avalanche and that the elongated object is just a block of ice covered in snow that slid away from the rest of the debris. Dr. Richard Waller says the block of ice came from part of a hanging glacier that collapsed. This is just one of many UFOs believed to have crashed in Antarctica, and for the moment it remains an unidentified object until someone goes there to check. Missing ship. The discovery of what seems to be a missing ship has sparked a whole new batch of crazy Antarctica conspiracy theories. A user on Google Earth spotted something that looks exactly like a cruise ship lying on its side on a block of ice, about 100 miles from the mainland of Antarctica. It's sitting on an ice sheet and seems to be covered in a light blanket of snow. What's really wild is that based on the Google Earth measurements, the ship is about 400 feet long. You can clearly see its hull, its smokestacks, and even the upper deck. It looks exactly like a cruise liner. But what is it doing sideways on an iceberg in the middle of the ocean? Some say cover-up, some say Nazis, and some say aliens. This obviously looks like a boat. If it's an accident of nature, it's one crazy coincidence. It could be a yacht that got lost at sea, it could be a decommissioned ocean liner, or it could even be a forgotten cruise ship. It's not that far-fetched to think a ship floated all the way to Antarctica and got stuck in the ice. It's not impossible. However, the conspiracy theories are out of control. Some say the ship belonged to a politician and is direct proof that powerful world leaders are doing something on Antarctica that they don't want us to know about. Some even say the boat was left behind by the Nazis when they built a secret base back in World War II. Secret base. Speaking of secret bases, something else was found on Antarctica using Google Earth that has sparked a wild theory. Somebody believes that they have found a secret base hidden on the icy continent. Using Google Earth, this individual discovered an air vent sticking out from what looks like a block of metal in a no-fly zone. They measured the structure using the tools on Google Earth and came to the conclusion that the base is 150 feet wide. It also has a black opening that seems to be man-made. The snow is darker around the base than in the surrounding area, implying some kind of heat transfer. The conspiracy theory here is that beneath the ice, someone has created a secret base. Though who that someone is, well, nobody can say for sure. The primary theory is aliens, though the truth is that anyone and any big government probably could have built a secret base here. After all, the United States tried to build an underground nuclear facility in the Greenland ice back during the Cold War, and nobody knew about that. Hitler was rumored to be obsessed with trying to conquer Antarctica, and there has been a race to control the icy continent for a long time. It wouldn't be that hard to build a base in Antarctica. Perhaps the question isn't who built it, but what is it being used for? And now for number 5. But first, what do you think is going on in Antarctica? Anything strange or suspicious? Let me know in the comments below. And I want to give a big shout out to John Stafford Sablin and Rhea Sales. Thanks so much for supporting this channel. If you want to learn more about amazing and mysterious discoveries, be sure to subscribe and join us. Face from another world. A Google Earth user has discovered the face of someone or something sticking out from the snow in Antarctica. By zooming in on a remote region in the southeast of Antarctica, the conspiracy theorist revealed a frowning face carved right into the ice, looking like some kind of angry deity. This time, there is no denying that what was spotted is quite obviously a face. It has 2 slanted eyes, a nose, and a small mouth. It also has a rather pronounced forehead, suggesting a type of humanoid from another planet. What could this face mean? Some say it's proof of a hidden civilization that once lived in Antarctica. Conspiracy theorists believe they carved the face thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years ago, before their civilization was erased. An even wilder theory is that the alien face was carved by a group of people or extraterrestrials currently living underneath the ice in secret. According to NASA, there is no face at all, and it's just a phenomenon called pareidolia, in which a person sees recognizable shapes in ordinary things like ice, clouds, or rocks. Entrance to Hollow Earth. The Hollow Earth theory is a fan favorite. The idea is that the inside of the Earth is hollow and inhabited by an advanced race of people living within their own atmosphere, with their own animals and monsters, completely independent of the outside world. In other words, there is a world inside of our own, in the hollow core of the Earth. First of all, it's important to note that the Earth is not hollow. There is a core of dense and very hot iron and nickel. It's a scientific fact. Nonetheless, some people believe the Earth is one big Kinder Surprise and full of monsters, and some of these people say that the entrance to Hollow Earth is hidden on the continent of Antarctica. What's really interesting is that the theory has been around for a long time. It was taken seriously by scientists and politicians up until just recently, though that isn't saying much, seeing as we were literally burning witches just a handful of years ago. If the entrance to Hollow Earth really is in Antarctica, nobody has found it yet, and seeing as we're talking about a giant wasteland of ice and snow, it probably won't be found anytime soon. The chances of finding the entrance to a secret inner Earth are about the same as falling off the edge of the ocean and into space. Secret Nazi cloning facility. Near the end of the Second World War, sometime during 1943, the Nazis began moving to the South Pole to construct a base. The base was to be built at Lake Vostok, a massive glacial lake hidden beneath roughly 2 miles of solid ice. There was apparently a Grand Admiral named Karl Donitz, who was quoted as saying something along the lines of, "Germany's submarine fleet created a fortress for the Führer at the other side of the world in Antarctica." It's also said that in the German naval archives, there is a report from a German submarine that arrived at the South Pole in 1945, just as the war was ending. The crew members of the submarine dug an ice cave and stored boxes full of Third Reich relics, including Hitler's very own personal secret files. Things get weirder still. The final bizarre Nazi rumor is that the submarine U-977 arrived in Antarctica with the remains of both Adolf Hitler and his lover Eva Braun, so that scientists could use their DNA at a secret cloning facility to bring Hitler back to life. None of these rumors can be proved true. The only true thing about the Nazis and Antarctica is that in December of 1938, a German expedition tried to establish a whaling station and maybe a naval base, but found that by the time they arrived in 1939, the area had already been claimed by Norway, and they left without building a single thing. Or did they? They didn't really follow the rules. Frozen town. Satellite images have revealed what appears to be a mysterious town hidden in Antarctica, buried under the rapidly thawing ice. The discovery was made by an unnamed paranormal investigator and conspiracy theorist. The site in question is about a mile long, with what have been described as sinister structures arranged in such a way to make them look like houses in a neighborhood. Oddly enough, each indiscernible structure is uniform. They all look identical, which is not something that happens very often in nature. It's also a bit odd that the nearest research facility is over 200 miles away. There should not be any man-made buildings in this part of the continent. These satellite images do seem to show something man-made, but is it really a hidden town? Some have suggested that these uniform structures, all lying neatly in a row, could be special nuclear bunkers built by the elite members of society to keep themselves alive when the end of the world comes. Another weird theory is that these structures are actually landing pads left behind by aliens. Nobody has any idea what they really are, but we do know that they first began to appear in 2001, as the ice started melting faster than ever before. Whoever built them must have done so a long time ago. UFOs in the sky. At the Antarctic Research Station Neumayer Station 3, a UFO has been spotted hovering in the sky. The UFO was spotted in a video being taken of the remote research facility. In the video, you can clearly see a circular object that almost looks like a balloon hovering in just a few frames before vanishing. The workers at the research station had no idea what it was. Nobody online could come up with any plausible theories, and the only ones who seemed to want to talk about it were the conspiracy theorists. They claim that the government is actually in collaboration with aliens, working together on top-secret projects and secret weapons, and that they're doing it under the guise of normal scientific research in Antarctica. But there are a few things wrong with the UFO sighting. First of all, the unidentified object looks a lot like a balloon. It could have just been a weather balloon, though this has not been confirmed by the research station. To be quite frank, nobody knows if it was a balloon or an alien ship. Although if the government did want to work with aliens, what better and more private place than an Antarctic research station? Fort of Bahrain. Qalat al-Bahrain, or the Bahrain Fort, has been around for an extremely long time. Located on the small island nation of Bahrain, the location of the fort has seen many things, and several cultures have used the site over the years. The archaeological site was inhabited from 2300 BC all the way until the 18th century. It was home to Kassites, Greeks, the Portuguese, and Persians at various points throughout history. The city also served as the capital of the Dilmun civilization, which played an important role in the region's history. Dilmun was only mentioned in Sumerian mythology as the bright and pure land where death didn't exist. There was water here and gardens, and the gods tended sacred plants. Sumerian gods were believed to live in Dilmun, but in this case, it looks like it was an actual place. Archaeologists have found evidence that Bahrain was once covered with natural springs and hundreds of thousands of ancient burial mounds. At the fort site, archaeologists unearthed an expansive collection of Dilmun artifacts, providing physical proof of a society that was previously only known as myth. Qalat al-Bahrain consists of a 39-foot-high artificial mound with 7 distinct layers representing the different periods of occupation. The site contains various structures, including residential, public, military, and religious buildings. A Portuguese fort sits atop the mound, testifying to Qalat al-Bahrain's significance as a port city. When the Portuguese arrived here, they built the fort on top of the mound, and you can still visit some of the rooms today. Underneath, there are the remains of a lighthouse, which means that this place was probably an extremely important port for thousands of years. Only about a quarter of Qalat al-Bahrain has been excavated, meaning that there may be more fascinating discoveries from powerful civilizations of the past waiting to be found. Mapungubwe. Situated along the modern-day borders of South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Botswana, the ancient city of Mapungubwe was the center of what was once the South African subcontinent's largest kingdom. It thrived as a major trading hub during the 13th and 14th centuries and was best known for its gold and ivory. China, Egypt, and India were among its top trading partners. The settlement's ruins were discovered in 1932, but news of the find was kept secret until 1994, presumably for the sake of keeping the site protected from looters and vandals. Mapungubwe left behind no written records, so everything we know about it we have gotten from the remains of its buildings. The architecture and artifacts left behind are helping us to piece together the society's culture, beliefs, and day-to-day lives. The ruins represent the first known evidence of a class-based society in southern Africa. There was a powerful ruling class, and then the rest of the population. Based on surviving structures that appear to have been houses or government buildings, experts surmise that life was mostly agriculture-based for the commoners of this tight-knit, family-oriented society. The site's oldest buildings, which date back to the 11th century, suggest that Mapungubwe's residents relocated there from a nearby settlement. There is evidence that Mapungubwe suddenly grew in the year 1045. Everyone was happy until inhabitants abandoned the settlement during the 15th century for reasons that remain a mystery to this day. One prevailing theory holds that climate change caused a drought and made it difficult to raise crops, forcing residents to seek out a more fertile place to live. Tessifon. Located on the banks of the Tigris River southeast of modern-day Baghdad, Tessifon is an ancient city that served as the capital of the Parthian and Sasanian empires. Situated along the Silk Road, it was reportedly built during the 2nd century BC as a military camp and became an important trade center, often moving caravans of Chinese goods across the river to the city of Seleucia. Now it is famous for having the world's largest brick-built arch, left behind by the ancient Persians. It was part of a palace complex and stands at 37 meters tall. There are conflicting stories surrounding Tessifon's beginnings. The writings of Pliny the Elder claim that Tessifon was established with the intention to outcompete with nearby Seleucia, which sat across the river. He wrote that the city's founders hoped that Seleucia's residents would be drawn to Tessifon and relocate there. The Romans conquered the city 3 times during the 2nd century and twice after that, and the city served as a major cultural and economic center under Roman rule. In 637 AD, Muslim Arab invaders looted and took over Tessifon, using some of the materials from its structures to build the city of Baghdad. Today, the city stands in ruins. In 2013, the Iranian government made plans to restore it as a tourist attraction. The most famous attraction now is the Great Standing Arch of Tak Kasra, which experts believe was built under the Sasanian king Shapur I during the 3rd century BC, according to his father's vision. Mayan megacity. Deep in the Guatemalan jungle in 2018, scientists discovered tens of thousands of Mayan structures, including houses, defense works, pyramids, agricultural fields, and irrigation systems. Factoring in this newfound megacity, experts estimate that up to 10 million people once lived throughout the Maya lowlands, between 2 and 3 times as many as they originally thought. The discoveries were made using LiDAR, or light detection and ranging technology, which detects structures hidden beneath dense foliage. Thanks to this capability, the team didn't have to go trekking through the jungle with machetes. They identified around 60,000 structures spanning an 810 square mile area, including 4 major ceremonial centers containing pyramids and plazas. Additional evidence shows that the land was heavily cultivated in order to feed the burgeoning Maya population. Maintaining these farmlands required a massive, highly organized workforce. These findings show that the Mayan civilization was far more advanced and powerful than it has long been given credit for. Thanks to technologies like LiDAR, scientists can more efficiently identify long-lost sites, sparing them the time and energy of guessing where they think something might be and cutting through the dense jungle to get there, with no fathomable clue about their chances of finding anything. Ancient capital of kings. Between the 14th and 19th centuries, Inwa, also called Ava, was the imperial capital of the Burmese Kingdom. Located in modern-day Myanmar's Mandalay region, it was sacked and rebuilt several times as leadership changed. This was the seat of the mighty Burmese Empire. Inwa was founded on an artificial island in the 1300s and then spread out from there. The ruler of the time ordered canals to be built to connect rivers and swamplands together, so he could make an island citadel based on its strategic location. During the Ava period between the 14th and 16th centuries, the city was the capital of Upper Burma. As a major intellectual center, academics and philosophers flocked to the site. In 1511, an exquisite golden palace was built here. But the Ava period was not all smooth sailing. Inwa fell under siege during the 40 Years' War in 1405, and in 1527, the city fell to numerous invaders who would come and take over. It was constantly getting recaptured and rebuilt over the years. During the 16th century, Inwa became the capital of all of Burma and served as the headquarters of the efforts to unify the kingdom. But the city's glory days came to an abrupt halt in 1753, when enemy forces burned it down. Reconstruction began nearly a decade later in 1764, and then once again in 1765, Inwa became the capital. It subsequently served as the capital during the 19th century. In 1839, a series of devastating earthquakes hit the region, leaving Inwa in ruins as tremors continued in the aftermath of the destruction. Buildings were leveled, and people and animals died en masse. This marked the end of the city's existence, and a few years later, the capital was relocated for good. There are a few remaining areas of the once powerful capital, including the city's brick walls and a tower. Unfortunately, what's left of Inwa does little to capture its former magnificence. Great Zimbabwe. Built in the southeastern hills of modern-day Zimbabwe, the enormous walled city of Great Zimbabwe is one of ancient Africa's long-enduring mysteries. Researchers have established that Great Zimbabwe was rich, powerful, and technologically advanced, but the extent of its influence is unknown. People began living in Great Zimbabwe around 1100 AD, and it peaked between 1200 and 1450, during which time it housed as many as 30,000 residents. Wealth from distant lands flowed into the city, which was at the heart of an expansive and wealthy trade network that extended as far as China and India. The city was also rich with gold, thanks to its local mines and large cattle herds. Surrounded by walls measuring up to 66 feet high, the medieval city may have served as a royal palace for the Zimbabwean monarch. Even more mysteriously, the city suffered an unexplainable decline and was abandoned during the 15th century. Baffled scholars speculate that political instability, overpopulation, changes in trade routes, the exhaustion of gold mines, and/or famines caused by overgrazing may have contributed to Great Zimbabwe's downfall. Today, the UNESCO World Heritage Site is in ruins. Its most fascinating feature is the Great Enclosure. Dating back to the 14th century, the area is surrounded by a circular wall and additional inner walls, and it contains a tower. Its use is unknown, but researchers have suggested that it functioned as a royal palace or a grain storage facility. Sadly, only limited excavations have been carried out, and the site was significantly damaged during the 20th century by European looters. It's possible, or even likely, that Great Zimbabwe's secrets are contained within its unexplored ruins. Bangar Fort. Bangar Fort was built in 1573 AD in what is now Rajasthan, India, under the command of local ruler Raja Bhagwant Singh. It was dedicated to his son, Madho Singh, and was considered an architectural marvel of the time. The city flourished during ancient times, peaking at around 10,000 residents. It boasted a royal palace, numerous temples, public chambers, marketplaces, and mansions, or havelis. The site is better known today as one of India's most haunted sites. One legend claims that an ascetic cursed the city after the land itself became overshadowed by its structures. According to another story, a black magic practitioner cursed the fort after failing to win over the heart of a local princess. Some newer stories involve fatal accidents taking place at Bangar. Visitors are banned from entering between sunset and sunrise unless they take a guided nighttime tour. This policy has caused many to question what types of supernatural phenomena they may encounter during their visit. Lost African Empire found. Archaeologists have recently found the remains of the long-lost African Christian kingdom of Alwa. Located in modern-day central and southern Sudan, it is the least studied of the three known medieval Nubian kingdoms. Its exact Christian origins are a mystery, but it's believed the people here practice a Christian rite inspired by the Egyptian Coptic Church. Out of dozens of archaeological sites that have been identified, only Alwa's capital, Soba, has been thoroughly excavated. Soba occupied a roughly square-mile area and was described as a town of extensive dwellings and churches full of gold and gardens. At its height, it may have supported a population of 30,000, according to archaeologists. This wealthy urban center was home to around 25 churches, including one that researchers believe was the last Egyptian-style temple to be built. Evidence suggests that the Alwa kingdom dates back to the 6th century and flourished for nearly 1,000 years. At its peak in 900 AD, it covered some 120,000 square miles, about the size of Italy. However, in 1504, it fell to Islamic forces, and the Christian kingdom was cut off from the European Christian nations. Excavations have revealed an enormous palace and very large churches. Archaeologists have also found extremely delicate pottery that was richly decorated, with all kinds of geometric designs and animals, all kinds of gold, textiles, Chinese porcelain, and tombs made of marble. Alwa was one of the last Christian kingdoms of the Nile Valley, and in a way, the last remnant of the ancient Egyptian civilization itself. As The Independent points out, most of ancient Egypt was taken over by the Romans, but Meroe and other places in Sudan remained, continuing the civilization. Vilkabamba. Immediately upon his arrival to northern Peru in 1531, Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro began claiming territories on behalf of both himself and Spain. Pizarro's 180 men and their horses encroached upon the Inca Empire, which did not back down without a fight. In 1536, the Incas rebelled against the conquistadors and retreated deep into the jungle of the Peruvian Andes. The empire launched attacks against the Spanish from Vilkabamba, its newly established secret rebel base that ultimately served as the civilization's final stronghold. Nestled in a remote mountainous region, Vilkabamba served as a capital for several cities that the Inca rebels had established throughout the region. 4 different leaders ruled over Vilkabamba until it fell to the conquistadors in 1572, at which point the Incas set fire to the site and abandoned it, rather than let it get into enemy hands. The Spanish captured and executed the ruler, Tupac Amaru I, thereby effectively ending the Inca Empire. Over time, the city was forgotten, and nature reclaimed it. For over a century, archaeologists searched tirelessly for Vilkabamba. Following its discovery in the 1980s, architect and explorer Vincent Lee mapped it all out. The foliage was reportedly so thick that a person could hardly distinguish between the buildings. Vilkabamba's ruins consist of a massive hall with 26 doorways, a palace compound, and numerous streets, rooms, temples, and stairways. The site was never looted thanks to its remoteness and inaccessibility, making the ruins extremely valuable for gaining further insight into what went on there. Ayutthaya. Located north of Bangkok in what is now central Thailand, the ancient Siamese capital of Ayutthaya was once one of the world's richest cities. It was founded in 1531 by King Yu Thong, who sought refuge there from a smallpox outbreak, as the second Siamese capital after Sukhothai. This strategically situated metropolis was built on an island that was surrounded by 3 rivers leading to the sea. Ayutthaya flourished between the 14th and 18th centuries as a global center of diplomacy and commerce. During its heyday, the city contained roads, canals, gilded temples, palaces filled with treasure, and an advanced water management system. An estimated 300,000 residents lived there by the year 1600, and experts believe the population may have numbered as many as 1 million by the 18th century. In 1767, the Burmese army sacked Ayutthaya, causing the kingdom to collapse and its inhabitants to flee. The invaders set fire to the capital, and because many of the city's structures were made from wood, much of its architecture was lost in the blaze. All that's left of Ayutthaya are the 50 or so stone relics and temples that survived the fire. The ruins consist of the city's reliquary towers or prang, as well as large monasteries which stand as the few remaining testaments to the kingdom's former splendor. Although there is relatively little to see today, Ayutthaya is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Thanks for watching! Which place was your favorite? Which place would you visit if you could? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!